Lila lived in a small cottage near the enchanted woods. Every night, as the moonlight shone through her window, she heard a soft melody coming from the forest. It was like a lullaby, gentle and calming, but no one else in her family could hear it. Her mother said it was just the wind, but Lila felt it was something magical. She would lie in bed, listening to the tune, her curiosity growing stronger each night. One evening, she decided to ask her grandmother about the woods. Her grandmother's eyes widened, and she whispered, "Long ago, a girl sang to the trees, and the woods have never forgotten her." Lila's heart raced. Could the melody be her song? That night, the lullaby felt closer, wrapping around her like a warm hug, calling her into the mysterious forest. The next morning, Lila stood at the edge of the woods. The tall trees seemed to whisper as the wind rustled their leaves. She took a deep breath and stepped inside, her small feet crunching on the dry leaves below. The sunlight peeked through the branches, casting golden patterns on the ground. But as she walked further, a faint glow appeared, leading her deeper into the woods. The glow came from a small, glistening pond. As Lila approached, she saw ripples spreading across the water, even though nothing seemed to touch it. The lullaby began to play softly again, as if the pond itself was singing. Lila felt a mix of fear and wonder, unsure whether to stay or run. She decided to sit by the pond, her eyes fixed on the shimmering surface, waiting for the next clue to the forest's secret. As the moon rose high, Lila sat by the glowing pond, mesmerized. Suddenly, the lullaby became louder, as though someone was singing nearby. She turned to see a shadowy figure among the trees. It looked like a young girl, her outline glowing faintly in the dark. Lila's heart pounded, but her feet refused to move. The figure stepped closer, her voice blending with the forest's melody. The girl smiled softly and said, "I've been waiting for someone to hear my song." Her voice was kind, but there was sadness in her eyes. She told Lila her name was Alara, and she had lived in the woods long ago. The trees had loved her voice so much that they kept her melody alive. Lila felt both scared and comforted, as if the woods were alive with stories she had never imagined. Alara led Lila to a circle of ancient trees, their trunks thick and covered in moss. "This is where I used to sing," Alara said, pointing to a spot in the middle. The trees seemed to hum softly, their leaves swaying gently as if they remembered her voice. Alara explained that she sang to comfort the forest when storms frightened the animals. Over time, her song became a part of the woods themselves. Lila felt a strange connection to Alara and the woods. "Why do I hear your song?" she asked. Alara smiled and said, "Because you have a kind heart, and the forest trusts you." Lila felt proud but also worried. What would happen if she stopped listening to the song? Alara assured her that the forest would always be with her, as long as she kept her love for its magic alive. Before the first light of dawn, Alara took Lila back to the glowing pond. "I must leave now, but the forest will always sing for you," Alara said. She touched Lila's hand, and a warm glow spread through her. The lullaby grew softer, fading into the rustle of leaves and chirping of birds. Alara smiled one last time before disappearing into the mist. Lila walked back to her cottage, feeling both sad and happy. She knew she had discovered something magical, a secret that only she could hear. That night, as she lay in bed, the forest's lullaby returned, softer but filled with love. Lila closed her eyes, promising to always cherish the melody and the enchanted woods that had shared their story with her. Days turned into weeks, but Lila could not forget the glowing pond or Alara's voice. Every night, the lullaby drifted through her window, as if calling her back. One evening, she decided to return to the woods. As she stepped into the forest, the trees seemed to greet her, their leaves swaying gently in the cool breeze. The path to the glowing pond felt clearer, as if the forest itself was guiding her. When Lila reached the pond, she saw something new, a small, shimmering crystal lying at the edge of the water. It sparkled in the moonlight, and as Lila picked it up, a soft warmth spread through her hand. She heard Alara's voice whisper, "This is a gift from the forest. It will always protect you." Lila felt a deep sense of peace and knew she had become part of the wood's magic. One evening, a dark storm gathered over the enchanted woods. Thunder rumbled and lightning flashed, making the forest look eerie and wild. Lila stood by her window, worried for the animals and the trees. The lullaby was faint, almost lost in the sound of the wind. She held the crystal tightly and decided to visit the woods despite the storm. As she stepped inside, the rain poured down, but the trees shielded her like guardians. The glowing pond looked dull, its light flickering like a weak flame. Lila sat by the pond and began to hum the melody she had heard so many times. Slowly, the glow returned, and the forest seemed to calm. The storm passed, and Lila felt the woods thanking her in their silent, magical way. Lila began to notice that the crystal she had found was not an ordinary one. Whenever she held it, she could hear whispers, soft voices of the forest telling her their secrets. She learned about the ancient oak that had stood for centuries and the tiny flowers that bloomed only under the full moon. Each secret made her love the woods even more. One day, the whispers told her about a hidden grove deep within the forest. It was a place no one had seen in many years. Lila followed the whispers, guided by the crystal's faint glow. When she reached the grove, she found a circle of trees with golden leaves, shining even in the daylight. She knew this was a sacred place, a heart of the forest that only she could protect. The forest seemed happier with Lila around. The trees stood taller, the flowers bloomed brighter, and the animals played freely. But one night, the lullaby changed. Instead of Alara's familiar melody, Lila heard a new song, one that felt like her own. She realized the forest was asking her to sing, to create a bond that would last forever. Lila sat by the glowing pond and began to hum, letting the melody flow from her heart. The trees swayed gently, their branches moving to her tune. The crystal in her hand glowed brighter, and for a moment she felt Alara's presence beside her. The forest had chosen her as its new guardian, and her song would now be the one that echoed through the woods. As the years passed, Lila grew older, but her connection with the forest only deepened. The lullaby became a part of her life, a song she sang every night to keep the magic alive. The crystal stayed by her side, its glow reminding her of the enchanted wood's love. Even when she was far from the forest, she could feel its presence, like a warm embrace. One evening, as she sang by the pond, she felt a familiar warmth around her. The trees seemed to hum along, and for a brief moment, she saw Alara's glowing figure smiling at her. Lila knew the woods would always remember her, just as she would remember them. The forest's lullaby would live on, a mysterious melody connecting hearts across time. One misty evening, Lila decided to explore a different part of the woods, The air felt heavy with mystery, and the trees seemed taller and darker than usual. As she walked, she realized she didn't recognize the path anymore. The forest was silent, except for faint whispers that seemed to come from all directions. Holding the glowing crystal tightly, she tried to stay calm. Suddenly she saw a narrow, winding trail appear before her. It shimmered faintly, as if inviting her to follow. With careful steps, she moved forward, the whispers growing louder. The trail led her to an old, crumbling archway covered in vines. Beyond it, she could see a strange, glowing light. She hesitated but knew that the forest had chosen this path for her. As Lila stepped through the archway, she entered a clearing surrounded by towering trees with silver leaves. At the center stood a figure unlike anything she had ever seen. It looked like a tree, yet it had a human-like face carved into its bark. The figure's eyes glowed softly, and its voice echoed like the wind. "I am the guardian of the ancient woods," it said. The guardian explained that the forest's magic was growing weaker. "The lullaby needs strength, and only you can help," it said. Lila felt a wave of responsibility wash over her. The guardian handed her a small wooden flute, saying, "Play this when the forest is in need, and it will awaken its deepest magic." Lila promised to protect the woods, her bond with the forest stronger than ever. One night, as Lila stood by the glowing pond, she noticed something strange. The pond's light was fading, and the forest felt quieter than usual. The trees no longer swayed, and the animals seemed restless. Lila knew this was the moment the guardian had spoken about. Holding the flute, she began to play the melody she had learned from the lullaby. The soft tune floated through the woods, and slowly the light began to return. The trees came alive, their branches moving in harmony with her music. The animals gathered around her, their eyes glowing with gratitude. Lila felt the forest's magic flow through her, stronger than ever. She realized that her music was now a part of the woods, keeping its secrets and stories alive. As the days passed, Lila noticed that the forest was restless again. This time the whispers were urgent, warning her of something approaching. She followed the whispers to the edge of the woods, where she saw a group of people setting up camps. They carried axes and tools, their intentions clear. They wanted to cut down the trees. Lila's heart sank. She rushed back to the glowing pond and called for the guardian. When the figure appeared, its voice was grave. "The forest must protect itself, but it needs your help," it said. Lila played the flute once more, and the forest came alive. The trees grew taller, their roots spreading to form barriers. The people at the edge hesitated, sensing the wood's powerful energy. With Lila's help, the forest remained safe, its magic stronger than ever. The people at the edge eventually left, unable to disturb the enchanted woods. Lila felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing she had kept her promise to protect the forest. The guardian thanked her, saying, "You are now the keeper of the lullaby. The forest will always remember you." Years later, as Lila grew older, she passed on the crystal and the flute to her younger sibling, ensuring the forest's legacy would continue. The lullaby echoed softly each night, a reminder of the magical bond between Lila and the enchanted woods. Even as time moved on, the forest's melody lived on, its secrets safe in the hands of those who truly loved it. One evening, Lila noticed that the lullaby was growing softer. The once vibrant melody sounded distant, as though the forest's magic was slipping away. Concerned, she ventured into the woods with the crystal and flute in hand. The trees appeared dull, their leaves losing their usual shimmer, and the glowing pond barely emitted any light. As Lila sat by the pond, she played the flute, hoping to revive the forest. But the melody didn't seem to work. The guardian appeared, its voice weary. The forest is not just magic, it needs love and care, it explained. Lila realized that the woods were hurting because people had forgotten its beauty. She resolved to remind everyone of the forest's wonders. Lila began inviting villagers to the edge of the enchanted woods. She told them stories of the glowing pond, the magical lullaby, and the guardian who protected the trees. At first, many didn't believe her, thinking it was just a tale for children. But her sincerity touched a few hearts, and they agreed to follow her into the forest. As they entered, the villagers saw the trees sway gently and heard faint whispers in the air. They were amazed by the glowing pond and felt the forest's quiet magic. Lila played the flute, and for the first time, the villagers heard the lullaby. It was soft yet powerful, filling their hearts with peace. They promised to help protect the woods from harm. To celebrate the forest's magic, Lila and the villagers organized a festival. They decorated the edge of the woods with lanterns and flowers. Children sang songs inspired by the lullaby, and elders shared stories about the forest's past. The guardian, though unseen, seemed to smile as the trees danced gently in the evening breeze. During the festival, Lila played the flute near the glowing pond, and the forest's light grew brighter than ever. The villagers marveled at the beauty of the woods, feeling its magic touch their souls. The celebration created a bond between the people and the forest, ensuring that its legacy would live on for generations. Just as peace seemed to settle over the forest, a new threat emerged. One night, Lila noticed a shadowy figure lurking near the glowing pond. It moved silently, as though it were a part of the darkness itself. The guardian appeared, warning Lila that this shadow was an ancient force seeking to steal the forest's magic. Lila knew she had to act quickly. Holding the crystal tightly, she began playing the flute, her melody sharp and commanding. The shadow hissed and recoiled but did not disappear. The guardian instructed her to lead the villagers in a protective chant. Together, their voices rose in harmony, creating a powerful shield around the woods. The shadow fled, defeated by their unity. With the shadow gone, the forest's magic flourished once more. The lullaby grew stronger, its melody echoing through the trees and reaching every corner of the village. Lila felt a deep connection to the woods, knowing she had fulfilled her promise to protect them. The guardian thanked her, saying, "You have ensured the forest's survival for centuries to come." Lila decided to pass down the story of the enchanted woods to the children of the village. She taught them the lullaby and the importance of loving and caring for nature. As years went by, the forest remained vibrant, its secrets shared only with those who truly understood its magic. The lullaby became a song of hope, connecting hearts with the mysterious beauty of the enchanted woods. One sunny morning, Lila decided to explore a part of the woods she had never visited. The trees were dense, and sunlight barely reached the forest floor. As she walked deeper, she stumbled upon a moss-covered door hidden at the base of an ancient tree. It was small, with strange carvings that glowed faintly. Curious, Lila touched the door, and it creaked open to reveal a narrow tunnel. The air smelled sweet, like blooming flowers, and a faint humming sound echoed from within. With the crystal in one hand and the flute in the other, Lila stepped inside, feeling a mix of fear and excitement. She had a sense that this door led to something extraordinary. The tunnel led Lila to a magical chamber filled with shimmering lights. At the center of the chamber was a glowing tree, its roots stretching across the ground like veins of gold. The air pulsed with energy, and Lila realized this was the heart of the woods, the source of its magic. As she approached, the tree spoke in a voice that was gentle but commanding. "You have protected us well, Keeper," it said. But there is one final test. The tree explained that its magic would weaken unless the forest had a guardian who truly loved it. Lila felt her heart swell with pride and determination. She knew she was ready for whatever lay ahead. The glowing tree asked Lila to place the crystal at its base. As she did, the chamber grew dark, and the comforting hum turned into a chilling silence. Shadows began to form around her, whispering doubts into her mind. They said she wasn't strong enough to protect the forest and that she should leave while she could. But Lila refused to listen. She played the flute, letting its melody drown out the whispers. The shadows hissed and retreated, and the chamber filled with light once more. The tree's voice returned, proud and reassuring. "You have proven your trust in the forest. The magic will remain strong as long as your heart stays true. As a reward for her bravery, the glowing tree offered Lila a gift. A small golden leaf detached from its highest branch and floated down to her. The tree explained that this leaf held the essence of the forest's magic. "Carry it with you, and you will always have the strength of the woods," it said. Lila held the leaf close to her heart, feeling a warmth that filled her with confidence. She promised to use the gift wisely and to never let the forest down. The chamber slowly faded away, and Lila found herself back at the glowing pond. The forest felt more alive than ever, its lullaby strong and vibrant. With the golden leaf in her possession, Lila felt an even deeper bond with the enchanted woods. The villagers noticed her newfound confidence and often sought her guidance. She shared the forest's magic with them through stories and music, ensuring they respected and cherished its beauty. As the years passed, Lila became a symbol of hope and unity for the village. She taught the children the lullaby and encouraged them to care for the woods. The guardian appeared less frequently, trusting Lila to handle the forest's needs. And so the forest thrived, its secrets safe and its magic eternal, thanks to the keeper of the lullaby. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Lila heard a strange echo from the forest. It wasn't the lullaby, but a different melody, soft, haunting, and filled with longing. She followed the sound, feeling it tug at her heart. The path led her to a part of the woods that was unfamiliar, with twisted trees and deep shadows. The echo seemed to come from beneath the earth. Lila knelt down and pressed her hand to the ground. The vibrations were gentle but insistent, like a heartbeat. The guardian appeared, warning her that the call came from a forgotten part of the forest's magic, one that had been locked away for centuries. Lila knew she had to uncover its mystery. As Lila dug gently into the soil, she uncovered an old stone tablet with carvings similar to those on the hidden door. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet trembled, and a faint light emerged. A spirit appeared, glowing faintly and looking weary. It introduced itself as the keeper of memories, a being tied to the forest's history. The spirit explained that it had been trapped when the forest's magic was weakened long ago. It thanked Lila for her courage and dedication, which had freed it. "The forest remembers kindness, and so do I," the spirit said. offering her a blessing. The blessing made her feel more connected to the woods, as if she could hear its every whisper and sigh. The Keeper of Memories taught Lila a new song, one that spoke of unity and harmony. The spirit said the song had the power to bring all beings of the forest together, from the smallest insects to the tallest trees. Lila practiced the melody on her flute, its notes light and joyful. When she played it by the glowing pond, something magical happened. The entire forest seemed to come alive, with animals gathering around her and trees swaying gently to the rhythm. Even the villagers, miles away, felt the melody and were drawn to the forest. It was a moment of pure connection, as if the world had become one. Despite the newfound harmony, the forest faced a challenge. A group of strangers arrived, drawn by stories of the magical woods. They sought to take the glowing pond's water, believing it held powers they could use. Lila stood firm, explaining that the forest's magic was not meant to be taken but shared through love and respect. The strangers didn't listen, and the forest began to tremble in protest. Lila played the song of unity, and the guardian appeared alongside the Keeper of Memories. Together, they created a barrier that shielded the forest. The strangers, realizing their mistake, left in peace, and the forest calmed. Lila had once again proven her devotion. As time passed, Lila grew into her role as the forest's guardian. The golden leaf remained close to her heart, and the forest's lullaby became her constant companion. She often visited the glowing pond and the heart of the woods, feeling their magic strengthen with each visit. The villagers came to love and protect the woods as much as she did, planting trees and caring for its creatures. Lila knew she would not live forever, but she trusted that the forest's story would continue. With her flute in hand and the song of unity in her heart, she walked the woods, knowing she was part of something timeless and beautiful. One evening, as the sky turned dark and the first stars appeared, Lila heard whispers in the wind again. This time, the whispers weren't gentle. They were urgent, filled with worry. Following the sound, she found a part of the forest where the trees seemed to wither, their leaves turning gray. The familiar lullaby no longer echoed here. Lila knelt and placed her hand on the soil, feeling the forest's pulse. The shadows had returned, dark spirits that fed on fear and anger. The guardian appeared, telling her that the forest was under threat once again. These shadows grew stronger when people forgot to appreciate the magic of nature. Lila knew she had to restore the balance before it was too late. Determined to save the forest, Lila ventured deeper into the woods. The path grew more difficult, with branches blocking her way and thick fog filling the air. The shadows danced around her, their forms flickering like candlelight. Lila continued forward, the golden leaf clutched tightly in her hand. She could feel the forest's magic weakening, but knew that she could help restore it. The Keeper of Memories appeared once again, guiding Lila to a hidden path that had long been forgotten. "The path you seek is the one of kindness," it whispered. "Only through love and unity will the shadows be banished." Lila followed the advice, feeling a wave of peace settle in her heart. She played the flute, the notes light and pure, and the shadows began to fade. At the end of the hidden path, Lila found a small clearing where the forest's energy seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. The shadows gathered here, their voices full of anger. They demanded that Lila leave the woods, claiming that nature belonged only to those who took it for themselves. The air grew thick with tension. Lila stood tall and played the flute, her song stronger than before. The lullaby echoed through the trees, and the forest seemed to come alive with energy. The shadows writhed and screamed, unable to bear the beauty and power of the melody. Slowly, they began to dissipate, their forms melting away like mist. Lila had made her choice. Love and unity would always win over darkness. With the shadows gone, the forest began to heal. The trees stood tall again, their leaves green and vibrant, and the pond's glow returned brighter than ever. Lila stood in the center of the woods, feeling the forest's magic surge through her. The lullaby, once soft and distant, now filled the air with a beautiful harmony. The villagers came to visit, drawn by the soothing melody that seemed to reach into their hearts. Lila knew that the forest's magic was more than just a gift, it was a reminder of the connection between nature and humanity. She continued to teach the villagers the song of unity, ensuring they would always protect and care for the woods. The guardian watched over them, content in the knowledge that the forest would thrive for generations. Years passed, and Lila grew older, but the magic of the enchanted woods never faded. The villagers continued to honor the forest, passing down the lullaby to their children. The golden leaf, now a symbol of the forest's spirit, was kept safe in the village's center. Lila knew her time as the forest's guardian was coming to an end, but she was not afraid. On her final evening in the woods, Lila played the flute one last time, the song flowing effortlessly from her heart. The trees swayed, and the glowing pond shimmered in the moonlight. As Lila closed her eyes, she felt at peace, knowing that the lullaby would live on forever, echoing through the woods and the hearts of all who listened. The forest would always remain, its magic eternal. Years had passed, and Lila's presence in the forest had become a part of its very essence. The villagers, now grown, carried the song of unity with them wherever they went. Every evening, the lullaby echoed through the woods, a constant reminder of the bond between nature and humanity. Lila, though older, still wandered the woods, her steps light, as if the forest itself held her up. One evening, as she played her flute by the glowing pond, she heard a voice. It was faint but familiar, like the whisper of the wind through the trees. The voice spoke of a new beginning. Lila understood at once the forest was ready for its next chapter. The lullaby had become more than a song, it was now a part of the world itself. The villagers gathered at the heart of the woods, drawn by the soft strains of the lullaby. Lila stood before them, her flute still resting gently in her hands. She smiled, knowing that the forest's magic had spread far beyond its borders. The song was no longer just hers, it belonged to everyone who loved and cared for the woods. The guardian appeared, its form glowing warmly, and spoke of the future. The forest is no longer a place of secrets, but a sanctuary for all, it said. And the lullaby will guide those who seek peace. No matter where they are, Lila's heart swelled with pride. She had done what she set out to do. She had ensured that the forest's magic would live on for generations. As time went on, the lullaby reached further than anyone had imagined. People from distant lands heard its melody and came to the enchanted woods. They came to learn, to listen, and to experience the magic that had touched so many hearts. The villagers welcomed them, teaching them the song of unity and kindness. Lila, though aging, continued to watch over the forest. She knew that her time in the woods was nearing its end, but she felt no sadness. She had given everything she could to the forest, and it had returned her love tenfold. The lullaby was not just a song, it was a symbol of everything she had worked for. And as the song spread, she knew it would never fade away. One peaceful evening, as the sun set, and the stars began to shine, the guardian came to Lila. It had watched over the forest for centuries, protecting it from darkness and guiding its magic. The guardian spoke softly, "Lila, the forest is no longer in need of a protector. It is whole, and the lullaby will always guide it." Lila nodded, understanding the meaning behind the words. The forest was no longer just a place of magic, it was now a living, breathing entity that would continue to grow and thrive. As the guardian faded into the evening mist, Lila felt a calm peace settle within her. She knew it was time for her to rest, her work completed. Lila's final day in the woods came quietly, like a soft breeze in the early morning. As she sat by the glowing pond, her flute in hand, she played the lullaby one last time. The melody was pure and clear, echoing through the forest with a beauty that was beyond words. The trees swayed, and the stars twinkled above as if the world itself was listening. As she finished the song, Lila felt her body grow still. She closed her eyes, knowing that the lullaby would carry her spirit into the forest forever. The woods, now full of life and magic, would continue to sing her song. And as the first light of dawn broke, the lullaby echoed through the land, a reminder that the magic of the enchanted woods would live on, timeless and eternal. As the years went by, the village surrounding the enchanted woods began to flourish. The lullaby was now known throughout the land, and travelers came from far and wide to witness the magic of the forest. It was said that the song could heal the heart and bring peace to troubled souls. New guardians emerged, young people chosen by the forest itself to watch over its wonders. One such guardian, a young girl named Elsie, ventured into the woods with a heart full of curiosity and wonder. She had heard the lullaby since childhood and felt a deep connection to the forest's magic. As she walked the path Lila had once walked, she felt the energy of the trees and the soft whispers of the wind, as if the forest itself was welcoming her. Elsie found herself standing at the edge of the glowing pond, just as Lila had so many years ago. The water shimmered with an otherworldly light, and the trees loomed tall and majestic. Suddenly, the melody of the lullaby began to play softly, drifting on the breeze. Elsie closed her eyes, and in that moment, she felt a deep connection to the forest, a connection that went beyond the physical. She saw a vision, a dream where Lila's face appeared, her eyes kind and filled with wisdom. Lila's voice echoed in the dream. "Elsie, you have been chosen to protect the forest. Your heart must be as pure as the song itself. The woods will guide you, just as it guided me." The dream faded, leaving Elsie standing in the moonlight, her heart full of determination. As Elsie spent more time in the woods, she began to understand the true meaning of the lullaby. It was not just a song, it was the heartbeat of the forest itself. Each note carried the essence of life and magic, a reminder of the unity between nature and all living creatures. Elsie played the flute every evening, her melody blending with the wind and the trees, bringing peace to the land. One day the trees whispered to her, urging her to travel deeper into the forest. There she would find a hidden glade where the oldest tree, the heart tree, stood. It was said that the heart tree held the secrets of the forest's magic. Elsie, with a heart full of courage, set off on the journey, knowing that this was the next step in her destiny. The journey to the heart tree was long and challenging, but Elsie's determination never wavered. She crossed rivers, climbed steep hills, and navigated through thick underbrush. Finally, she reached the heart tree, its branches reaching high into the sky and its trunk wide and ancient. The air around the tree shimmered with an almost tangible energy. As Elsie stood before the tree, she felt a rush of emotions, peace, love, and a deep sense of connection. She placed her hand on the bark, and in that moment she heard a voice, soft and melodic. "Welcome, Elsie. You are the chosen one, the new protector of the enchanted woods. The lullaby will guide you, and you will keep the balance between nature and all who enter these woods." The heart tree's magic filled her heart, and Elsie knew that she was ready for the responsibility. Elsie returned to the village with a new sense of purpose. The people welcomed her as the new guardian, and she began to teach them the lullaby, just as Lila had once taught the villagers. The woods continued to thrive, and the lullaby's melody echoed through the trees every evening, bringing peace and harmony to all who listened. Elsie knew that the song would never fade. It was a part of the forest, a part of the land, and a part of every heart that believed in its magic. And as long as the lullaby played, the enchanted woods would remain a sanctuary for those who sought its peace. The legacy of the song lived on, its harmony eternal, just as it had always been. The village had grown, and with it, the knowledge of the forest's magic spread far beyond the land. People from distant kingdoms sought to learn the ways of the enchanted woods and the lullaby that had brought peace to so many. Elsie, now a wise and respected guardian, shared her wisdom with those who came to the forest. But not everyone who came had peaceful intentions. A group of outsiders arrived one evening, seeking the forest's magic for their own gain. They believed that by capturing the heart tree's power, they could control the entire kingdom. Elsie sensed the danger and knew that it was time to protect the woods once more. With the strength of the lullaby in her heart, she stood ready to face whatever challenge lay ahead. The outsiders tried to cut down the heart tree, believing that they could steal its magic. But as their axes struck the ancient bark, the forest roared to life. The trees swayed, their branches reaching out to protect the heart tree. The wind picked up, carrying the melody of the lullaby, louder and more powerful than ever. Elsie stepped forward, her flute in hand, and began to play the song. The power of the lullaby filled the air, and the outsiders were overwhelmed by its peaceful energy. The wind howled, and the trees seemed to speak, warning the intruders to leave. Slowly they retreated, their hearts filled with fear and respect for the magic they had underestimated. With the outsiders gone, peace returned to the enchanted woods. Elsie continued to play the lullaby every evening, strengthening the bond between the forest and the people who respected it. The village flourished, and the people lived in harmony with nature. They understood that the forest's magic was not something to be taken, but something to be nurtured. Elsie taught the next generation of guardians the importance of balance and respect for the world around them. She knew that as long as the lullaby played, the forest would remain protected. And the lullaby would continue, passed down through the ages, a song of peace and unity for all who believed. Years passed, and Elsie grew older, but her heart remained as strong as ever. She had fulfilled her role as the protector of the enchanted woods, and now it was time for a new guardian to take her place. As the sun set on her final day in the forest, Elsie sat by the glowing pond one last time, her flute resting in her hands. She closed her eyes and listened to the wind, feeling the lullaby's soothing melody wash over her. The forest was safe, and the song would continue. With a final peaceful sigh, Elsie knew that her work was done. She had given everything to the woods, and now it was time for her to rest. The lullaby played softly in the background, as if carrying her spirit into the heart of the forest. As Elsie's spirit became one with the enchanted woods, the lullaby continued to echo through the trees. The village prospered, and the legacy of the song lived on. Every evening, as the sun set and the stars twinkled above, the people gathered to listen to the soothing melody. They knew that the lullaby was more than just a song. It was the heartbeat of the forest, the protector of peace, and a reminder of the unity between all living things. The enchanted woods stood strong, its magic eternal. The lullaby would never fade, for it was a song of hope, a song that had been passed down through generations. And as long as the lullaby played, the forest would remain a sanctuary for all who sought its peace. As the years went on, the village near the enchanted woods continued to flourish. New generations grew up hearing the lullaby every evening, and the forest became a symbol of hope and peace. The people who lived nearby honored the woods and its magic, always showing respect for the trees and the creatures that called it home. One day, a young boy named Henry, curious and adventurous, decided to venture into the forest on his own. He had heard the story of the lullaby, but had never witnessed its magic for himself. With a heart full of wonder, Henry entered the woods, determined to find the source of the peaceful song that had filled his dreams for as long as he could remember. Henry walked deeper into the woods, the trees whispering secrets to one another. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the forest floor. The air was cool and fragrant with the scent of pine and earth. As he walked, Henry began to hear the soft melody of the lullaby floating through the trees. The song was gentle, calming, and somehow familiar. He followed the sound, his heart pounding with excitement. After a long walk, he came to the glowing pond that had been spoken of in the stories. The water shimmered with a magical light, and the sound of the lullaby seemed to be coming from its depths. Henry kneeled beside the water, mesmerized by the beauty of the scene. He knew, in that moment, that the legends were true. The magic of the forest was real. Henry sat by the pond, listening to the lullaby, when he felt a warm presence beside him. He turned to see a figure standing near the water's edge, an elderly woman, her hair silver and eyes kind. It was Elsie, the first guardian, whose story he had heard so many times. "Welcome, young one," Elsie said with a soft smile. "The forest has chosen you, just as it chose me many years ago. The lullaby has guided you here, and it will guide you on your journey as its new protector." Henry, amazed and overwhelmed, nodded slowly. He had always felt a special connection to the forest, and now he understood why. He was the next guardian, the one who would carry the lullaby into the future. As Henry grew into his role as the guardian of the enchanted woods, he played the lullaby every evening, just as Elsie and the guardians before her had done. The village thrived, and the forest remained peaceful. The song of the lullaby echoed through the trees, a constant reminder of the magic that lived within the woods. But as time passed, Henry began to realize that the lullaby was not just a song, it was a living force. It had a life of its own, constantly changing and evolving. It was the spirit of the forest itself, and it was growing stronger with each passing day. Henry understood that the lullaby was more than just a melody, it was a protector, a guide, and a promise that the forest would never be forgotten. One evening, as Henry played the lullaby beneath the heart tree, he felt a surge of energy surround him. The trees swayed, the wind carried the song, and the stars above seemed to shine brighter than ever before. Henry knew that the lullaby had become more than just a song, it had become the very essence of the enchanted woods. With a final, powerful note, Henry finished the song, and the forest fell into a peaceful silence. He felt the weight of his role as the guardian, knowing that the lullaby would continue to echo through the trees for generations to come. The enchanted woods, protected by the lullaby's magic, would remain a sanctuary of peace and hope. And as long as the song played, the spirit of the forest would live on forever. Years passed, and the enchanted woods remained as peaceful as ever. The lullaby continued to play every evening. Its melody carried on the wind through the village. People still came from far and wide to witness the magic of the woods, and they were always welcomed with kindness and respect. One evening, as Henry played the lullaby beneath the heart tree, he noticed something different. The wind seemed to carry a new note, a whisper that danced along with the melody. It was soft and gentle, but it was unmistakably there. Henry closed his eyes, listening carefully. The voice in the wind seemed to be calling him, urging him to go deeper into the forest. Curious, Henry decided to follow the whisper. He walked deeper into the woods, beyond the familiar paths. The trees grew denser, and the air felt heavier with magic. As he ventured further, he came across a narrow, hidden path that seemed to lead to a part of the forest he had never seen before. The whisper in the wind grew louder, guiding him down the path. After a long walk, Henry came upon a clearing where the trees parted to reveal a stunning sight, a circle of ancient stones, glowing with a soft, otherworldly light. In the center of the circle stood a tree, unlike any other he had ever seen. Its bark shimmered like silver, and its branches seemed to reach up to the sky as if touching the stars. The whisper was now unmistakable, calling him toward the tree. Henry approached the tree slowly, feeling its ancient energy pulsating beneath the ground. The whisper seemed to be coming from the tree itself, urging him to listen closely. He placed his hand gently on the bark, and in that moment, the lullaby began to change. The melody became richer, more powerful, as if it were speaking directly to his soul. As the music swirled around him, Henry felt a deep connection to the forest, its history, its magic, and its spirit. He realized that this tree was the true heart of the enchanted woods, the source of all the magic that flowed through the land. The lullaby had always been a part of it, but now he understood that it was the tree's heartbeat, and it was calling him to protect it. Henry knew that his role as guardian had changed. He was no longer just a protector of the woods, but the keeper of its heart. He knelt before the ancient tree, placing his hands on the roots. In that moment, he made an oath to protect the heart tree and all that it represented. The lullaby would continue, and he would ensure that the magic of the forest would never be lost. As he spoke the oath, the wind picked up, carrying the lullaby in a gentle breeze. The tree seemed to respond, its branches swaying as if in approval. Henry felt the forest's magic surround him, and he knew that he was ready to take on this new responsibility. The spirit of the forest had chosen him, and he would honor it with all his heart. With his new role as the heart tree's protector, Henry returned to the village and resumed his duties as guardian. The village continued to thrive, and the lullaby played every evening, soothing the hearts of all who heard it. But Henry knew that the lullaby's magic was eternal, and it would continue to guide and protect the forest for generations to come. As the years went by, Henry passed the mantle of guardian to the next in line, ensuring that the magic of the enchanted woods would never fade. The lullaby played on, its melody carrying through the trees, a song of peace, hope, and the eternal bond between nature and humanity. The enchanted woods stood as a testament to the power of harmony, and the lullaby would echo in its heart forever. As the years passed, the enchanted woods remained a place of peace and magic. The village continued to flourish, with the lullaby echoing through the trees every evening, calming the hearts of those who heard it. Henry, now an elder, watched as a new generation of children played in the woods, just as he had once done. He knew that the forest's magic would never fade. One quiet morning, Henry woke to find a new presence in the woods. The wind carried the softest notes of the lullaby, and he sensed that something had changed. The trees seemed to shimmer with a new energy, and the heart tree glowed brighter than ever before. Henry felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that the cycle of guardianship would continue forever. One evening, as Henry walked through the woods, he met a young woman named Clara. She had heard of the enchanted woods and the magical lullaby, and she was determined to find the source of the song. Clara was drawn to the forest by a dream one that spoke of a hidden truth and the ancient power that lay within the heart tree. Henry, seeing the same curiosity in Clara's eyes that he had once felt, decided to guide her. He led her through the forest, sharing with her the stories of the lullaby and the magic of the woods. Clara listened intently, feeling the pull of the forest's magic as they walked deeper into the heart of the woods. As they reached the clearing where the heart tree stood, Clara felt an overwhelming sense of wonder. The tree, glowing with a soft silver light, seemed to be waiting for her. The whisper of the wind seemed to call her name, just as it had called Henry many years ago. Clara knew that she had found what she had been searching for. Henry placed his hand on the trunk of the heart tree and smiled at Clara. "This is where the lullaby begins," he said. "It is the heartbeat of the forest, the song that keeps this land alive. And now it will be your turn to protect it." Clara's heart swelled with gratitude. She felt the forest's magic flow through her, connecting her to something greater than herself. The lullaby had chosen her, just as it had chosen Henry before. Clara knelt before the heart tree, her hands resting on its roots. She made a silent promise to protect the forest and its magic for as long as she lived. The lullaby seemed to respond, the melody growing softer and more peaceful, as if it was acknowledging her vow. In that moment, Clara felt as though she had become part of the forest itself. Henry, now content that the forest's magic was in good hands, smiled at Clara. "The lullaby will guide you, just as it guided me," he said. "And when it is your time to pass on the mantle, you will find someone who will protect it after you." "Just as I did," Clara nodded, feeling the weight of her responsibility, but also the joy of knowing that she was now part of the eternal cycle that kept the woods alive. As the years went by, Clara became the guardian of the enchanted woods. The lullaby continued to play every evening, its melody a constant reminder of the magic that filled the air. The village prospered, and the woods remained a sanctuary for all who sought peace. And so, the eternal song played on, its melody carried on the wind, weaving through the trees and into the hearts of all who heard it. The heart tree stood tall, its roots deep in the earth, as the forest's protector and the source of the lullaby's magic. With each new guardian, the story of the enchanted woods was passed on, and the song continued to echo through the ages, forever a part of the forest's heart. Many years passed, and the forest continued to flourish under Clara's watchful eye. But as time moved forward, the village began to grow, and more people came seeking the wonders of the enchanted woods. Clara saw the changes, and with them came new challenges. The balance of magic that had kept the woods alive for so long seemed to waver. One crisp autumn evening, Clara stood before the heart tree, sensing that something was different. The lullaby, which had always been calm and soothing, now seemed more distant. It still played every evening, but the melody felt weaker, as if it was being carried away by an unseen force. Clara felt a sudden urgency in her heart. She knew that the magic of the woods was calling her to do something more. Determined to restore the balance, Clara sought the guidance of the ancient spirits that lived within the woods. She ventured deep into the forest, to a hidden grove where the oldest trees stood. It was here that the spirits whispered their secrets, and Clara knew she needed their wisdom to understand what was happening. The spirits spoke softly to her, their voices like the rustling leaves. They told her that the magic of the heart tree was weakening because the connection between the forest and the village had grown too distant. The lullaby was no longer being heard as it should, and the balance between nature and mankind was shifting. Clara understood that she had to act quickly to restore the bond between the village and the woods. Clara returned to the village, her heart heavy with the knowledge that the forest's magic was fading. She knew that the time had come for the forest to be protected in a new way. It wasn't enough for her to simply be the guardian. The villagers needed to become a part of the forest's protection too. Gathering the villagers together, Clara spoke of the forest's magic and the lullaby that had kept the woods alive for so long. She explained that everyone had a part to play in keeping the magic strong. From that day on, each person in the village would become a guardian in their own way. They would care for the land, respect the trees, and listen to the lullaby every evening, ensuring that the connection between them and the forest would remain strong. As the villagers embraced their new roles as guardians, Clara noticed a change in the woods. The lullaby began to play with greater strength, its melody filling the air with warmth and peace. The bond between the village and the forest was restored, and the heart tree's glow grew brighter once more. The villagers would gather each evening in the clearing, listening to the lullaby and sharing stories of the wood's magic. The music had become a part of their lives, a reminder of the harmony that existed between the land and its people. Clara smiled as she watched the villagers pass on the stories of the forest to their children, knowing that the forest would continue to thrive for generations to come. With the village and the forest in harmony once more, Clara felt a deep sense of peace. She knew that the magic of the enchanted woods would never fade as long as the lullaby played. The village had become a part of the forest, and the forest had become a part of the village. Together, they would protect the land and its magic, ensuring that the lullaby would echo through the trees forever. As the sun set each evening, Clara would stand before the heart tree, listening to the soft, soothing melody of the lullaby. The wind carried the song through the village and into the hearts of all who heard it. And as long as the lullaby played, the magic of the enchanted woods would remain, timeless and eternal. Years passed, and the enchanted woods remained as peaceful and magical as ever. Clara had become an elder, and her hair had turned silver, just like the light of the heart tree. She watched over the forest with a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that the lullaby would continue long after she was gone. However, there were days when she heard the wind whispering a new melody, one that was unfamiliar and haunting. The whispers stirred something within Clara's heart, and she knew that a new chapter in the forest's story was beginning. It wasn't an alarming change, but rather a call to listen more closely. The wind carried this new song only on certain nights, and Clara was determined to uncover its meaning. The forest, it seemed, had one more secret to share. Clara followed the whispers one evening, venturing to a part of the forest she had not visited in years. It was a silent grove, where the trees were older and the shadows deeper. She had always avoided this part of the woods, as it was said to be where the first guardians of the heart tree had made their final resting place. As Clara stepped into the grove, the wind grew still and the whispers faded into silence. The air felt heavy, as though the trees themselves were waiting for her. Clara knelt beside an ancient tree, feeling the pulse of its energy. It was here that the magic had first begun, and now it seemed to be calling her to remember the forest's origins. In the center of the grove, Clara discovered a small stone monument, half covered in moss. It was engraved with symbols she did not recognize, but they seemed to shimmer with a faint glow. As Clara touched the stone, she felt a surge of power run through her. The forgotten song began to rise within her, a melody that was more ancient than the lullaby. The song was soft, yet powerful, a tune filled with sorrow and hope. Clara closed her eyes, letting the music fill her soul. She realized that the lullaby was not the only song the forest had ever known. The ancient song had been lost over time, hidden by the passage of generations. But now it was awakening once more, calling for its place in the world. The discovery of the ancient song shook Clara to her core. She understood now that the forest's magic was older than she had ever imagined, and the lullaby was only a part of its legacy. The lullaby had been a gift, a way to protect the forest's magic, but the original song had a deeper power, a power that could heal and protect in ways the lullaby could not. Clara knew she had to share this discovery with the village. The people needed to understand that the magic of the forest was not just about the lullaby, but about all the songs of the woods. She began to teach the villagers the forgotten song, weaving it into their daily lives. Slowly, the song became a part of the village's rituals, strengthening the bond between the land and its people even further. As the years passed, the forgotten song and the lullaby blended together, creating a new harmony in the enchanted woods. The villagers sang both songs, their voices echoing through the trees as they worked the land and cared for the forest. The heart tree glowed brighter than ever, its roots deep within the earth, connecting the village to the very heart of the magic. Clara, now an old woman, stood before the heart tree one last time. She smiled, knowing that the forest would continue to thrive long after her time had passed. The lullaby and the forgotten song had become one, a timeless melody that would echo through the woods forever. And in that song, the enchanted woods would always remain, alive with magic and harmony. One evening, as Clara rested under the glow of the heart tree, a strange feeling washed over her. The village had grown, and the once peaceful forest had begun to change. The ancient song, now blended with the lullaby, had woven itself into the very fabric of life. But Clara felt that the winds had shifted once again, carrying with them an unfamiliar chill. The songs were no longer filling the air as they once had. Clara knew that the forest was calling her, this time not to protect it, but to understand what was missing. The lullaby's soft tune had begun to fade, and in its place there was silence, and unsettling silence. The forest was waiting for Clara to listen to something new, something that had long been forgotten. Her heart raced as she realized that the balance once again needed to be restored. As Clara ventured deeper into the woods, the familiar sounds of the forest seemed distant. The rustling leaves, the chirping birds, and the whispers of the wind were gone. The trees stood tall but unmoving, as though they were waiting. Clara reached the silent grove again, the place where the ancient song had once been rediscovered. This time, the atmosphere was even more still, more solemn. There, in the heart of the grove, Clara saw a shadow she had never seen before. It was not a shadow cast by the trees, but one that seemed to float, silent and mysterious. The moment Clara stepped closer, the shadow vanished, and for the first time the wind began to pick up, carrying with it a new sound, a sound like soft footsteps on the ground. She realized that something or someone was trying to communicate with her. Clara felt the presence of an ancient guardian, one who had once protected the woods long before her time. This guardian's spirit had been awakened by the disturbance in the forest, and it seemed to be calling for help. The lullaby had been a song of peace, but now the guardian needed something stronger, something more powerful to protect the woods from an unseen threat. Clara stood tall, listening closely to the whispers that now surrounded her. The guardian spoke of a deep darkness that had begun to creep into the forest. The lullaby alone would not be enough to stop it. Clara understood that she needed to find a way to restore the balance, and that the guardian would play a key role in this mission. The ancient spirit had called upon her, and she could not refuse. Clara returned to the village, her heart heavy with the weight of what she had learned. The balance of the forest was threatened once again, but this time the answer would come from the villagers. She gathered them around the heart tree, her voice steady but filled with urgency. She explained that the lullaby and the forgotten song were not enough to protect the woods anymore. They needed to find a new song, one that could bring light into the darkness that had begun to encroach upon their land. The villagers agreed to help, knowing that the forest's magic had always been intertwined with their own lives. Together, they began to sing a new song, one that was born from the energy of the heart tree and the ancient wisdom of the guardian. As they sang, the magic of the woods began to pulse stronger than ever before. The darkness that had crept into the forest began to fade, pushed back by the light of the new song. With the new song sung by the villagers, the enchanted woods returned to its peaceful state. The lullaby and the forgotten song were no longer two separate tunes, but had merged into one powerful melody. The balance between the forest and the village was restored once again. Clara stood before the heart tree, feeling the warmth of its glow surround her. As the villagers gathered around, Clara smiled, knowing that the forest would be protected for generations to come. The songs would continue, their melodies echoing through the trees and the village, a constant reminder of the bond between the land and its people. The enchanted lullaby would never fade again, and its magic would forever be a part of the forest, alive and eternal. The village had flourished, and the forest was more alive than ever before. The new song, created by the villagers, had brought fresh hope to the land. Clara could feel the magic in the air, the energy flowing from the heart tree to every corner of the woods. The once silent grove now resonated with the sound of life, and the ancient guardians were at peace. But Clara knew that the forest's magic was not meant to remain untouched. It was a living force, always evolving, and with it, the songs would continue to change. As the years went by, Clara made a promise to the woods. She vowed that she would pass on the stories, the songs, and the wisdom of the forest to the next generation, ensuring that the magic would always be remembered and protected. One foggy morning, a wanderer arrived in the village. His eyes were bright with curiosity, and his presence seemed to carry an air of mystery. He had heard stories of the enchanted woods and the magical lullaby that had once protected the land. Now, he sought to uncover the secrets of the forest for himself. Clara, now an elder, sensed that the wanderer was no ordinary traveler. There was something familiar about him, as though he had once been connected to the woods long ago. She welcomed him, knowing that the forest had a way of drawing those with pure hearts and curious souls. As the wanderer listened to the village's stories, he began to hum a tune, a melody that stirred something deep within Clara's heart. The tune the wanderer hummed was not one Clara had ever heard before, but it felt ancient and full of meaning. It was a melody that seemed to echo from the very heart of the forest, reminding Clara of the time before the lullaby had been created. The song was a part of the forest's history, a piece of the magic that had been lost over time. Clara listened carefully, and as she did, memories flooded her mind, memories of the forest's first guardians and the powerful song they had sung to protect the land. She realized that the wanderer had come to awaken the forgotten song, the one that had once been the heartbeat of the forest. The wanderer's arrival was not a coincidence. It was part of the forest's plan to restore the magic to its original form. As Clara and the wanderer stood together under the glow of the heart tree, they began to sing the forgotten song. At first, their voices were unsure, but as the song grew louder, the magic of the forest responded. The trees began to sway, the leaves shimmered, and the ground pulsed with energy. It was as though the very soul of the forest was awakening, recognizing the song it had once known. The air around them seemed to hum with power, and Clara felt a deep connection to the forest she had always protected. She knew that this moment was a turning point, a moment when the past and the present had merged into something new. The wanderer's song had unlocked a part of the forest's magic that had been dormant for centuries, and the forest was now stronger than ever before. With the song now fully awakened, Clara felt a deep sense of peace. The forest was alive with magic, and the bond between the woods and the village was stronger than ever. The heart tree glowed brighter than it had in years, its roots stretching deep into the earth, connecting the land to the magic that had protected it for so long. The wanderer, having fulfilled his purpose, stood quietly beside Clara. He had given the forest a gift, the gift of remembrance. Clara knew that the forest's magic would continue to grow, and that the songs of the woods would be passed down through the generations. The heartbeat of the forest would never cease, its lullaby echoing forever in the wind, the trees, and the hearts of all who lived there. As the years passed, the village continued to thrive under the protection of the enchanted woods. The songs of the forest, passed down through generations, were now an integral part of village life. People would gather around the heart tree to sing together, their voices blending in harmony with the wind and the rustling leaves. It was a beautiful, peaceful existence. However, Clara could feel that something was changing. The whispers in the trees had grown louder, carrying messages that were not entirely clear. The once comforting sounds now held a sense of urgency. It was as if the forest was calling for help once more, but Clara didn't know why. She stood under the heart tree one evening, listening to the wind and hoping to understand the message it carried. That night, as Clara sat by the fire, she noticed the village children playing near the edge of the woods. They were laughing, but Clara could hear a strange undertone in their voices, as if something was hiding in the shadows, watching them. She felt a sudden chill run down her spine. Something wasn't right. The lullaby had always kept the dark forces at bay, but now she sensed a disturbance in the air. The trees began to shake, their branches creaking under the weight of an unseen force. Clara's heart raced as she ran towards the village center, where the villagers had gathered. The wind was no longer peaceful, it had turned sharp, almost as though it were warning them. Clara knew that something had disturbed the balance of the forest again, and she had to act quickly to protect everyone she loved. The next day, Clara ventured deeper into the woods, her mind heavy with concern. The once vibrant trees stood still, as if frozen in time. The songs had stopped, and the air was thick with an eerie silence. It was as though the forest was holding its breath, waiting for something. Clara reached the silent grove, where the first song had been rediscovered. She sensed that whatever had caused the disturbance was hiding somewhere close. Suddenly, a shadow flickered across the ground, moving faster than the eye could see. Clara turned to follow it, but it was gone as quickly as it had appeared. She could feel the presence of something dark, something ancient, lurking just out of reach. It was a force that had been asleep for centuries, but now it had awakened, and it was growing stronger by the minute. Clara knew that she had to find a way to stop it before it consumed the forest. Clara returned to the heart tree, where the magic of the forest had always been strongest. She stood before it, her hands pressed against its bark, and closed her eyes. She had learned to listen to the whispers of the woods, but now they were louder, more urgent. The heart tree's glow had dimmed, and the songs it once sang were now faint echoes. Clara knew that to restore the balance, she would have to face whatever was lurking in the depths of the forest. A voice, soft but clear, echoed in her mind. It was the heart tree itself, speaking to her in a language only she could understand. "The forest's heart is yours to protect," it said. "But to restore the balance, you must face the darkness that seeks to consume us." Only then will the song of the woods return. Clara knew that this was the ultimate challenge. She was ready to face whatever was threatening the forest, no matter the cost. With the heart tree's guidance, Clara set out once more into the depths of the forest. She knew the journey ahead would be difficult, but the magic of the woods and the strength of the village were with her. The trees whispered words of encouragement, and the wind carried her forward, pushing her towards her destiny. At the heart of the forest, Clara found what she had feared, the dark force that had been growing in strength. It was an ancient spirit, twisted and lost, seeking to take the magic of the woods for itself. Clara stood tall, her heart filled with the power of the heart tree. She began to sing, the lullaby joining with the ancient song and the new song the villagers had created. The melody grew stronger and more powerful with each note, pushing back the darkness. The spirit screamed in frustration as the songs of the forest enveloped it, washing away the darkness. In a final burst of light, the force dissolved, leaving nothing but silence behind. The woods had been saved once again, and the songs would continue to echo through the trees forever. With the darkness now banished from the woods, Clara stood in the quiet forest, feeling the weight of the victory settle around her. The air was thick with magic, and the trees were slowly coming back to life. The leaves shimmered with a newfound vibrancy, and the heart tree pulsed with energy, its glow steady and strong. The balance had been restored, but Clara knew that the forest's work was never truly done. She walked through the woods, feeling the song of the forest resonate deep within her. The lullaby had returned, clearer and stronger than ever before. It was as if the woods had been reborn, its magic now more powerful than it had been in centuries. The villagers, too, felt the change. They could sense the peace returning to the land, and they gathered once again under the heart tree, ready to sing their song of thanks. That evening, the entire village gathered in the heart of the woods. The air was filled with laughter and song as everyone joined together to celebrate the peace they had fought so hard to protect. The village elders led the song, their voices harmonizing with the gentle rustle of the leaves. The young ones, too, sang along, their voices light and full of hope. Clara watched from the edge of the gathering, her heart full of gratitude. She had given everything to protect this land, and now it seemed that the forest was finally at peace. The villagers had learned to live in harmony with the woods, and their song had become a part of the very fabric of the forest. The heart tree stood tall, its glow steady, as the magic of the woods and the village intertwined. As the night grew darker, Clara made her way to the heart tree once more. The glow from the tree bathed her in soft light, and she could feel the pulse of magic in the air. She knew that the forest's magic was something that needed to be nurtured, and it was her responsibility to ensure its survival. The song of the woods had to be passed down through generations, just as the lullaby had been before. Clara made a promise to the forest that night she would continue to protect it, passing on the song to those who came after her. She would teach the children of the village the melodies of the past and the songs of the future. As long as the lullaby echoed through the trees, the magic would remain, and the forest would continue to thrive. Years passed, and Clara grew older. The village had flourished, and the forest was more vibrant than ever. Yet one day, a familiar face appeared at the edge of the woods. It was the wanderer, the one who had sung the forgotten song long ago. He had returned, and this time he came not as a traveler, but as a friend of the forest. The wanderer had journeyed far and wide, and in his travels he had encountered many wonders. Yet, none had ever compared to the beauty of the enchanted woods. He had heard the new song, the one that the villagers had sung, and it had called him back. Clara welcomed him with open arms, knowing that his return meant something important. The wanderer had brought with him new songs, new melodies to weave into the fabric of the forest's magic. With the wanderer's return, the songs of the enchanted woods grew richer and more diverse. Clara and the wanderer worked together to combine the melodies of the past with those of the future. They composed new songs that spoke of the forest's power, its mysteries, and its beauty. These songs would be passed down through the generations, ensuring that the lullaby of the woods would never fade. As Clara sat beneath the heart tree, surrounded by the forest's song, she felt at peace. The woods had been her life, her protection, and her joy. She had given everything to the forest, and in return it had given her a purpose. The lullaby would continue, echoing through the trees, forever a part of the enchanted woods. And as long as the songs played, the forest would always be safe. As the seasons passed, the village continued to grow, and the enchanted woods flourished. The heart tree, once dim and weary, now stood tall and strong, its branches reaching toward the sky. Clara had spent many days near the tree, reflecting on everything that had happened. The forest had not only survived but thrived, thanks to the lullaby and the village's deep connection with it. One evening, as Clara approached the heart tree, she felt a warmth radiating from it. The tree shimmered with an inner glow, and a soft, melodic hum filled the air. She stepped closer, and to her astonishment, the tree released a single, glowing leaf that floated gently into her hands. It was the tree's gift, a symbol of its gratitude for her unwavering protection. Clara held the leaf close to her heart, knowing that it was a reminder of the magic she had helped preserve. With the heart tree's gift in her possession, Clara felt the weight of her responsibilities more than ever. She was not just the protector of the woods, but also the keeper of the forest's songs. Each melody carried with it the essence of the woods, the magic, the peace, and the stories of those who had come before her. The songs were sacred, and Clara knew it was her duty to ensure they were passed down for generations to come. She spent her days teaching the children of the village the songs she had learned and the ones she had composed with the wanderer. The children sang with joy, their voices bright and full of hope. The songs echoed through the village and the forest, creating an unbreakable bond between them. The woods had become a living part of the villagers' lives, and their voices had become part of the forest's very soul. However, as the years went by, Clara began to feel a strange shift in the air. The winds, once gentle, had grown colder, and the once vibrant leaves of the forest seemed to lose their color. It was subtle at first, just a flicker in the corner of her eye or a soft whisper in the wind, but soon, Clara realized that something was wrong. One fateful night, as she sat beneath the heart tree, she felt the same unease she had felt long ago. The song of the woods had grown quieter, and the trees stood still, their branches swaying unnaturally. Clara's heart raced as she heard a familiar whisper carried by the wind. It was the same dark force that had once threatened the forest. Though it had been defeated, Clara knew it had returned stronger and more determined than ever. The forest seemed to hold its breath as Clara prepared for the battle she had feared. She knew that the darkness would not give up easily, and this time it would take more than just the lullaby to protect the woods. Clara gathered the villagers, and together they stood beneath the heart tree, their voices raised in unison. The lullaby, once a symbol of peace, now became a weapon against the encroaching darkness. The wind howled, and the trees shook as the dark force approached. Clara and the villagers sang with all their might, their voices strong and determined. The heart tree pulsed with energy, its glow brighter than ever before. The battle was fierce, the darkness pushing against the light, but the songs of the forest were powerful. Slowly, the darkness began to fade, its grip loosening as the forest's melody grew louder and stronger. With the final note of the song, the darkness dissolved and peace returned to the enchanted woods. The wind calmed, the trees stopped shaking, and the air was filled with a gentle hum. Clara stood, exhausted but relieved, beneath the heart tree. The battle had been won, and the forest was safe once again. As the villagers gathered around her, Clara knew that the lullaby would continue to play, not just in the woods, but in the hearts of all who had sung it. The forest had been saved, and the songs would echo through time, forever binding the magic of the woods with the souls of those who loved it. The lullaby would never fade, and the enchanted woods would always remain a place of peace and wonder as the last note of the lullaby gently fades into the night. The enchanted woods stand peaceful and still. The songs of the forest will forever live in the hearts of those who have protected it, reminding us all that even in the darkest times, the light of unity and harmony will always prevail. Clara's journey may have ended, but the lullaby she nurtured continues to echo, bringing peace to all who listen. Thank you for joining us on this magical journey through the enchanted woods. Remember, just as the forest lives on in song, so too do the stories of wonder, mystery, and magic that connect us all. Until we meet again, may your dreams be filled with the peaceful lullaby of the enchanted woods.